This is Ken Pyle at the Media Innovations 2011 Summit, and we're with Laura Martin of Needham and Company. Laura, you just raised some questions, the questions that really need to be asked as we're moving from what was old media to new media.
Yeah, so I think a really interesting question is, what are the implications of the fact that these new media companies are huge compared to the old media companies? So Apple's market cap today is about $350 billion, Google's at $200 billion, Facebook is supposed to be $100 billion and isn't even public yet, and it's kind of in its nascent growth phase. So these companies in the new media space are larger. Each one is larger than the kind of Disney plus Viacom plus CBS plus News Corp in the old media space. And what are the implications of that for the future of how we think about media?
Well, in new media, it's also a new generation too, and you mentioned that that's another area that is kind of a question.
Well, another question I am thinking about is on the consumer side. The consumers got to find money to pay for these personal devices. So each of these devices costs, hundreds of dollars, whether it's your smartphone plus the maintenance fee each year, or whether it's your iPad. Where does that money come from? Because we have 9% unemployment, we're in a recession kind of. Where's that money coming from that the consumers are buying these new devices with? I think that's a really interesting question. And going forward too, all this stuff that we're going to enable and all this cool Facebook, social TV stuff and all these new revenue streams that we think innovation is going to bring, where does the money come out of the consumer's pocketbook?
Well, and I think one of you raised the point about, another area where they have to pay is the cost of content through their cable bill or whatever, and it's gone up, 15 of the last 16 years has been faster than the rate of inflation. You pointed out, though, these relationships of content owners and distributors take a while to change.
Yeah, well, a lot of the TV ecosystem, not only is it really huge at $150 billion of revenue a year, most of it, or a lot of it, is governed by long-term contracts, 5, 7, 10-year contracts. So the TV ecosystem changes slower than consumer demand shifts, and it changes slower than technology innovation because of the long-term contracts.
Well, and then a central tenet to it, something I never really picked up, I think you really illuminated this whole idea of Nielsen as kind of the Federal Reserve of the TV industry.
Federal Reserve, that's a great word for it. It is the currency that everyone shuts their eyes and pays on. It saves a lot of time, and people it is the reason that the TV ecosystem is able to monetize itself at such high levels. And the minute you pull viewers out of the existing TV ecosystem, which means out of the Nielsen data, it's really hard to get paid for that viewer. So the over-the-top and the new competitors will be most monetizable after Nielsen arrives there. But that could be, months, quarters, years.
Well, and that impacts TV everywhere. So even what the distributors are trying to do by bringing their products out to other screens and so forth, it seems like Nielsen's a big part of it.
Yeah, and Nielsen would allow them to monetize. TV everywhere is just basically watching your TV on a different device. Nielsen can follow that. Nielsen can actually go with the TV everywhere product, which means it's a much more lucrative product than disassembling your channel and going over the top where you lose all the money if you're the content guy or the cable channel person.
And kind of moving, that back to that metaphor of the Nielsen as the currency. It's almost like the U.S. dollar, and if you try to base it on some other currency, just doesn't.
It creates a lot of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it looks like there's going to be a lot of chaos still, and kind of figuring out where all this goes.
No, I think what it means is the TV ecosystem stays intact longer than people think.
Okay.
That there'll be innovation at the edges, but it will be hard to monetize. So there's a lot of content innovation at the edges, very hard to monetize. There'll be device but very, that doesn't require Nielsen, so that's okay. But the content guys, the new content creators, are going to have a lot of trouble monetizing because they don't have a currency that advertising agencies agree to pay based on.
Interesting. So on one hand, you've got all this innovation thanks to the internet and technology, but then you've got these business models that are kind of set in stone.
Yeah, the business models really are. Business model innovation is the slowest moving part of creating a new ecosystem. And it's my view that the new, let's call it the new over-the-top, let's call it an ecosystem of its own, will not be monetized through advertising in the near term because of this Nielsen, but will have to drive a commerce component. And so the business model innovation will have to be around big data, which is to selling very specific, non-wasted advertising time, which is more a very high CPM for very narrow reach, or some kind of commerce. You watch our show for free, but click here and you can buy shoes, and then it's a lead gen, and the guy gets $10 instead of 10 cents, which is not advertising, it's more lead generation. But again, that's business model innovation and very doable on the web.
Yeah, and so it's really more extending a retail presence into a TV and
Integrating. I would call it converging or integrating commerce with content with delivery.
So we may see totally new models develop that even render.
And we should, because the competitive advantage of the old TV ecosystem was you got millions of people watching every year, and that's what advertisers need. In this new world, it's all about hyper-personalization, and that's not what advertisers need.
They want sales.
They want sales, so good. Instead of advertising, just have them buy the product with a coupon, and then good, that's more direct.
Well, super, Laura. Appreciate your time here. Thank you.
Thanks.